You're listening to the Family Health Lab. Healthy parents, healthy kids.
Hi there, Dr. Penny. Lovely to have you on.
Hello, Claire. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Your low carb down under talk that you gave really caught my attention ages ago. I remember speaking to Rod, who's the founder of Low Carb Down Under, about it. And it just really, really resonated. Just joy. You just kind of talked about being a low carb GP, what it was like to practice. And you just gave a sense that you just absolutely love practicing it. So what is it that you do love about low carb?
Well, it's interesting. After years of being a GP, I always thought, I ended up thinking my job was to make sure everyone was on the right medications. So I was sort of proud of myself that I never missed, the drugs that people should be on, and everything was at target. And when you move to low carb medicine, it's completely the opposite. And your goal is to get everyone off the medications. And the reason I became a drug prescriber was because I tried lifestyle. So I've always wanted people to be healthy, and I've tried really hard. I was doing OptiFast back in the 90s. I, knew about fasting and Michael Mosley's 5-2. And so I'd been trying everything, but it didn't matter what you did. It never seemed to work. People would you'd just watch these people that you knew and you loved getting sicker, and you'd just be riding their blood pressure pill and they hit sort of 45. And it was sad because you knew it was all food, but you're just having to use tablets to treat what they're eating. But because I didn't know about low carb, I thought it was all about calories. And I'd talk about get a small plate, all those silly things, get a small plate. But it just didn't work. And so I'd end up, my spiel was Mediterranean diet, olive oil, nuts, don't eat processed food, and just don't put on weight. Okay, our aim is not to gain
they hadn't thought of that.
and just prescribe pills. And you'd just be watching everything slowly just get worse. But the second I figured out the insulin idea, that insulin causes fat storage, and fat cells can't get fat without insulin, and insulin drives fatty liver disease and makes people hungry. And if you lower insulin, people don't feel hungry, and the fat comes out of the fat cells and everything works the way it's meant to. And you don't need to limit calories. You don't have to worry about calories. Just keep insulin low by eating less sugars and starches, because they're the guys that put it up. And it was so simple. And the minute from the first person who I'd never met before in my life, who I told this to, and I used Dr. Westman's 20 grams of carbs back then. And she did it, and it was like a miracle. So we'd be crying, she'd be losing weight. And then I did it on the next lady. And not only did she say at 1 week, doesn't take long, at 1 week review, I'm not tired anymore and my hands don't hurt and I don't need an afternoon's sleep. And I came home and I mowed the lawn and my irritable bowel's gone. I'm like, oh my God, it fixes everything, So I just kept doing it. And then you just start stopping medications and you get your diabetics and you go, just don't eat the bread and your porridge and let's halve your insulin. And it's so easy. That's what's shocking about it, is it's not science, not like it's like rocket science. It's like you're a diabetic, you're full of glucose, don't eat the foods with glucose. And then you just become sort of shocked that dietitians and endocrinologists and Diabetes Australia, why are they not telling everybody this? It's just sort of, you just then become a bit horrified and then completely suspicious of everything else. And you sort of question and you look now at science yourself. You don't trust other people because this is so obvious. It's so obvious. And it just should be the first line option for everybody. But at the moment, it's last line. Nobody tells people with diabetes or metabolic syndrome that if they just keep their insulin low by dodging sugars and starches, they'll be so much healthier. So that's my story. So that's why I think low-carb doctors are called low-carb zealots.
Yes.
Because they're just going, why has no one told me this? Everything gets better so quickly. Why has no one told me? So then we just become a bit crazy.
Yes, crazy in a good way,
Yeah.
crazy in a helpful way, but yeah, crazy. Like I said this to somebody else recently. I just would not have changed career, changed as a nutritionist, and now I, work with a number of different nutrition-based or metabolic health organisations to further low carb, like a zealot, just purely because it's not being given as an option for people. It's not supported, and there's been such crazy pushback by health bodies, etc. But if this was an option, I would be off happily doing something else. So I think that's what makes us crazy zealots. I've heard that you've said as well about your patients, and your love of low carb and what it's doing for them really shines, really does. But I've heard that you've said they are sometimes quite angry, and is that why? Because they feel, I mean, really, some of these patients that you must be seeing have been getting ill, progressively ill for decades, I suppose, and they've been given wrong advice from well-meaning physicians like yourself, but they could have had a really simple option. So I suppose that's why.
Yes, I know, like particularly people with chronic kidney disease from metabolic syndrome, particularly diabetes. I have a lot of these people, and so their kidneys are really, by the time your kidney test starts being abnormal, you've lost 90% of your kidney. It's gone, it's dead, it's scarred, it's broken. And so it's picked up, and I get these people, they're right down low, they're nearly at dialysis. Like I've got a guy who's on dialysis now, and he had CKD 5, like right down the bottom, and there's nothing left. And he was on
chronic kidney
insulin.
disease.
Yeah, and he was on insulin for his diabetes, and he was having porridge in the morning and injecting his insulin, and insulin is harmful to the kidneys. It's believed to be a driver of the diabetic kidney disease as well as the glucose, so the two together. And so he was on injecting this insulin, having his porridge, having a hypo, so a low sugar from the insulin at lunchtime, and drinking orange juice to bring the sugar up. And he already had a pretty good diet. And I just said, just don't have the porridge, have some eggs and stop your insulin from day one. His blood sugars were amazing. He was off insulin. He was eating fish. He had a beautiful diet, but it was too late. And so he's on dialysis now. And what a pity. I don't know, 3 years ago, someone said maybe don't eat cereals and grains and you'll be better. And so those people, I think, because there's this sort of belief no one can do it. But so many people are trying their hardest with their muesli and their banana and their wholemeal toast. It's wholemeal. And they're doing what they're told. They're not eating McDonald's and chips and rubbish, lollies and cakes. A lot of them, particularly these sicker people, are trying really, really hard, but they're not given the option of low carb. And if they were, they'd be able to halt this progressive disease and probably reverse a lot of it and not end up on a dialysis machine. So, yeah, those people get cranky.
That's so sad, so sad, and I suppose you see other cases like that, and that's what we have a whole generation really. Majority of Australians, Americans, UK, all around the world, majority of us are metabolically unwell. Vast majority in America, it's over 90%. It's crazy. And advice like this, really simple stuff, could be making a huge difference to not getting these chronic diseases. So in terms of, I've heard you say that you find diabetes easy, and when a patient comes to you and they're on insulin, you get excited. Now that doesn't seem normal, Penny.
I know, I know, isn't it funny? Because in the past, when you get someone perhaps on a walker, really overweight and on a billion medications, like all these people are on it's like a cliche of tablets. They're all on the same little bundle. And they come in the past, your heart would sort of sink. And it was about repeat scripts, listening and being nice. and then blood tests, monitoring, and just watching them get sicker, more depressed, miserable. And then they might say, my back hurts, and, and they're tired. And as a GP, what can you do? Nothing. You can just fill out the scripts and check they're all on the right pills. And so your heart would sort of sink because you couldn't really help them. It would just be like being nice. That would be the consult, being nice. And now when I love those people, because they get better so fast, and you get them off drugs really fast, and because they feel so much better. I had a lady, this is showing off, just yesterday, who she left the consult, and then she popped her head back into the room and said, "Thank you so much, you've changed my life." Now, you don't get that as a normal GP, do you? And you just by saying, don't eat grains, potatoes and sugars. It's so easy, and their hands stop hurting, their back doesn't hurt, they enjoy their grandchildren, they can get up off the ground, their medication list is shrinking, and it's just such satisfying medicine. It's so satisfying. So those sicker people on more drugs get more reward really fast, so they're motivated. They don't want to eat the bread because they know where it takes them. So that's why I think I prefer those really sick people on a lot of insulin, because they get off it fast and they don't want to go back there, and so they're motivated. It's not just about looking thin. It's about living and not being dead. Because they are just sort of dead in their lives because they can't live it.
Yeah.
So, yes.
That's such a big motivator. On all those medications. I remember a client of mine called Terry, he won't mind because he's now sharing his story, and he's letting as many people in his own community know. And he's a gentleman from the West Indies originally. And when he was leaving a consult, he just said, "I just want to show you something." And he dug in his pocket, and he got out a coin, and he threw it on the ground. I was like, "Where's this going?" And he bent down and picked it up, and he was like, "Look what I can do!" I could, and it was just laughing. He was like, "I show people that, I show my kids that. Like, I could not get off this chair. I was stuck. I ended up watching so much daytime TV because I couldn't get out, and I got worse and worse and more overweight, and everything was aching, and I just didn't even realize how much everything was aching, but I just could not bend over, couldn't get up. And now I've got, my aches and pains have gone, and it's just incredible, isn't it?
It is fun.
That gives me a lot of joy when working with people, and it's just giving them the information. When I was working with a group, and it was, I think, the second session of low carb session in a medical practice. So going through the information and introducing what people would avoid if they wanted to follow a low carbohydrate diet, giving the overview. And it was like you're just saying, no pasta, no bread, no potatoes, and switching over to these. I remember one gentleman, an older guy, he got up and said, "Right, I'm out. I eat potatoes every day, and I have sandwiches every day. And even if it's going to get me better, make me well, get me off medication, I've been doing this, all of my life, decades and decades, and I'm going to continue. So I'm out." And that does happen. So It's not for everybody, is it? Do you ever get those type of people that kind of push back?
And that's why, because not everyone can do it, but that isn't a reason to not offer it to everyone, because I think that's what a lot of mainstream people go, and people can't do it. Well, a lot of people can do it. So surely we should give everyone a chance. Yes, I know, like the other day I had a woman, and, she just eats chocolates and biscuits and comfort eats. And I was thinking in my head, because you know how you want to help people so much, and I had to just tell myself, my job's just to be here, and when she's ready to change, I'm here. It's not about judgment. That's fine. And just pointing out to her, but that's why you're tired and depressed and unhappy and feel exhausted, and is because you're eating biscuits, and that, as long as you know that. But our job is just to give the information and be kind and non-judgmental, and some people can do it and some people can't, and you're there when they do want to change. But yes, certainly there are people that can't do it. But at the same time, I often think people aren't going to be able to do it. I'll write in the notes baker, because people, I'll often ask, do you like baking? Because people, like making cakes and baking. It's a real red flag, isn't it, for such sugar addiction? Like they're thinking about sugar all the time. And so that's my notes to myself, baker.
That's funny. Red flag.
And I'll think, they're not going to be able to do it. They're a baker, but that's okay. And then they'll come back and they've done it. They've sort of, it's like a moment of understanding. Oh, okay, it's not just about calories and being thin.
Yeah.
It's about energy. Who cares what you weigh? It's like, have you got energy to live your life? That's what you want. And low carb gives you energy, and you might get thin on the way, but boom, you can access your fuel source. It's not locked up. So, I'm surprised by who can do it. People who aren't. I actually find the wealthy people the hardest. So I've got a few, like I'm in Port Macquarie, and a few people come from Sydney to see me, which is amazing. And they're often from like the North Shore, which is like a posh part of Sydney. And they're tricky because they're sort of brainwashed into muesli, that they sort of love granola. And when you go, you can eat meat, they're going, no, it's bowel cancer.
Oh, yes.
They're sort of really suspicious.
Whereas very ingrained.
They overthink it, and then you have to really sell it and send them scientific papers, and they're a lot of hard work. Whereas other sort of people just come in and go, all right, thanks. Oh, I can eat meat. Great, thanks very much. Sort of a farmer, and off they go and eat their meat and veg, and
I love those people who are just like, I can eat meat, and somebody has, showed me the science, and like, I wanted to eat eggs and meat. Oh, this is amazing.
Yes. And they walk out so happy.
They skip out. They're like, oh, okay. And then they thrive. That's so good. When you were saying earlier about giving medications a lot, it reminded me of Dr. Sarah Holberg in her book, Status Quo Thinking. She also was very, very concerned early in her career that she found the profession as of doctors as actual just drug pushers. And so your first comment really resonated with that. And this, you've said it a couple of times as well, that people, I often hear from medical bodies or practitioners, health bodies, that people can't do this. They can't sustain this lifestyle change. And it's given us a reason not to progress ketogenic diets and low carb diets a great deal. And I think you've you kind of knocked that one back pretty well, but it just really gets me. It's the worst reason not to give somebody an option. And I hear it again and again. I hear it for about parents who won't be able to change their diets, for getting their children off processed foods and getting them on higher protein, getting them on lower carb to help conditions like ADHD, or their children now with their weight problems or a number of different problems. And you just hear that, oh no, they just won't be able to do it, so this is much easier for them. It just really frustrates me. So on just in terms of, I think one of your super skills as a low carb practitioner is your nuggets. You're in your talks, and I've listened to your podcast, but I've also listened to your YouTube talks, and we've chatted before when we've met. I think you're really good at kind of giving succinct little pearls of wisdom. So what do you tell your patients? How do you kind of simplify this lifestyle and in takeaways? I mean, I've heard you say, for example, you can have wheat bix. That's, you can, with this diet, you can choose how you're going to live and make your own choices. You can have wheat bix and insulin, or you can have an omelette and reduce or have no insulin. So have you got any ways that you like to make it easier for families and people to get their heads around?
That's scary. Quick nuggets. I can't. They just pop out. I don't know. On the spot, a nugget. Gosh, I don't know. I can't think of any. What would I say to families? I'm not even going to do nuggets. So for families, because your show's targeted at families, what worries me, like I had someone yesterday and they were worried about their child dances and a lot, and so they need food. If it was they bake for their child. And you don't need to bake for your child. Your child doesn't need cakes. There's this whole thing, your kid needs juice and biscuits and energy. That isn't energy, is it? It's not energy. It's the opposite of energy. So real foods, if you're a parent, there's a whole rice crackers. They're not food, are they? That's just processed carbohydrate, which everyone thinks is not good. Even the dietitians don't like rice crackers. And so for a parent, you don't have to be keto or you don't have to be low carb. Just think real food. I want to give my child real food, which is, hummus and vegetable sticks or a nut butter, or, it's real food. It's not right. It's not the biscuit aisle. Don't go down the biscuit aisle or the cereal aisle and you're winning. Mm-hmm. And that's what children need. And I know from my own kids, it's sort of horrifying because everyone is poisoning them. So the teachers are rewarding them with crap. The coaches are giving them rubbish. It's always someone's birthday at school with something. Kids' lunch boxes are party boxes, aren't they? They're like birthday party boxes, and they have to have a tiny teddies or there has to be a cupcake. And we're wondering why a quarter of the kids are overweight or obese. And it's pretty obvious we're not giving them food. We're giving them, chemicals. So you don't have to be keto. You don't have to be low carb. Just mainly do real food and you're winning. And the other thing is parents don't see when their child is overweight because most of the kids are overweight. So if their child is skinny, they think they need to be baking because they're skinny. But the skinny child is the healthy child and everyone else is not healthy, and we've lost perspective. They've done studies, doctors can't pick it. You need to, yes. So doctors you can't see with your eyes. There's a BMI scale for children and you need to plot them on that to see where they are, and parents don't see it. We see the skinny child as sick and the more overweight child as healthy. So for parents, if your child's skinny, you're probably winning. As long as they've got energy, then they're fine. And the energy can come from real food, and that can be fruit with a child. It doesn't need to be keto. It just needs to be real.
And it really doesn't need to be keto or low carb for families, unless you have a medical condition that you're looking to, like reversing weight or another type of condition. But there's really fantastic studies that show the improvements in cognition and attainment even at school, behavior and mood and energy just by doing exactly what you're saying, switching out the crap and putting back in food that is actually food. The getting back into eggs and meat and those vegetable bites. And I totally agree. I worked on a school program in the UK to improve school meals, and packed lunches packed by parents were party bags. They were, I remember it was going from school to school in different areas. Some were kind of lower economic areas and some were higher. And going to one area and it's like lots of packaged rubbish in the school, lots of crisps or chips, soft drinks, and really trying to kind of bat those back out and clear that up in the school community. Then going into a leafy village in a posh area, and they're sending their children in with chocolate croissant, just a chocolate croissant, and it's like just posher crap, and. But yeah, across the board, it was very, very, very few had, and then it becomes your norm in society then. So what your children's friends are eating is what you're eating, and then what the school is serving. And like you said, our school children started a new school, and I was absolutely gobsmacked. My daughter's class won the I think it was the attendance award for that term, and they were rewarded with a Domino's pizza. It's like, what are you doing? What kind of messaging? So you're sending your children into a health class at school where they're supposedly learning about what's healthy and what's not. That's questionable. And then the school is regularly rewarding high attainment, good grades and attendance with a Domino's pizza. It's like,
do you know, I just gave a talk to a group of GPs in Port Macquarie a couple of weeks ago, and I had changed the date. I had it booked in and then I went on a different day, and they had lunch. They'd ordered lunch in. They laughed. They said the day they thought I was coming, they'd ordered like a salad wrap. But this day was Domino's pizza. So they're all eating their pizzas while I'm talking to them about low carb. And I did look at them eating those pizzas and go, man, you guys are going to be so foggy this afternoon. Do you know, it's like they're going to feel terrible, aren't they? So awful after that pizza. I felt sorry for them. But they were laughing like they knew. I was going, just eat the topping, just eat the topping.
When I first got to Australia, I've done that, just eating the topping. Like, fellow weirdo. So when I first got to Australia, I was really surprised. I was invited to talk at some doctors' medical centres and talk to doctors, and I was really bemused. I was supposed to bring them lunch, and I hadn't realised that that's the go here. It's like they won't speak to you unless you bring them food. So that was new.
Luckily, I didn't have to bring it.
Yeah,
well, I know the drug reps bring them food.
So maybe that's where they've got it from. But over here in WA, that was the expectation, that we would, whoever is invited in to speak will bring the lunch, and I didn't. So it was a major faux pas. But yeah, I was going to ask, we were talking about making low carb simple, how to do it. And you have, you have children, they're grown and not quite flown, but they're a little bit older now. But how did you navigate this? Because we're talking about how it's kind of crushing in on families. It's not just to say that families are putting crap into their children. It's actually coming at them from the moment they go to nursery, the moment they go to their first play group. Actually, I remember biscuit and squash, and it's like ridiculous at that age. But it's crushing in at every sport event, every activity that they do. So how did you navigate? It must have been really, really hard when you're evangelical about this, but the real world is giving your children everything else.
Yes, well, I certainly can't judge other parents. So I didn't know about low carb when my children were, 5. And I remember, but another close friend, she was always, but I knew about healthy eating. I was always thinking about, but she would always come ready prepared with she'd have the fruit, but then there'd be the tiny, the fruit's the symbol, and then there's the tiny teddies as well. Mm-hmm. And I would come just with the fruit. And so my child would always just eat their, do you want some tiny teddies? And they'd bring tiny teddies for her. And so I then would feel greedy and like a taker, because I didn't want them to have that. So I wasn't bringing that. And then and I, and I remember my husband in the pool, how you have to go in the pool with your child going like, you're swimming with the baby and I'm on the edge with the other child eating like the rubbish food that had been handed to them by the other family, and he's glaring at me, what are you doing? Because he's into healthy eating as well. So it's hard. It is hard. So I always go, oh, what can you do about that? I don't know, nothing. And my kids would always come home, that there's, the other kids had this in their lunchbox. So you sort of give in. I can see why parents give in. But I would do my best with my hummus and my, cheese sandwich and ham and cheese sandwich. And then as they grew older and I learned about low carb, and my daughter, she used to feel proud. I think when you go, they sort of learn, they model off you. So if we have spaghetti bolognese, I'd still make pasta for them, but I wouldn't give them much. It'd just be a bit. And then my husband and I wouldn't have any. And I'd always make rice, and I'd just give them a little bit of rice. But after a while, I'd find the rice, no one would be eating the rice. And so then I'd just stop making rice because they sort of didn't want it, because there's more of the real yummy stuff there and less of this empty white stuff. So modelling and then just giving them a bit and not too much. And as they've got older, they don't want that. And my daughter would go to high school with her salad with cheese and meat in it, and she would feel quite proud of herself. And the teachers would go, oh, you actually eat that, and she'd be horrified at what her friends were eating. And my son actually helped one of his friends who'd been overweight all the way through school, and then he said to him, how should I eat? And he showed him the Diet Doctor website. And he went
Yes.
low
Yeah.
carb and he got thin. So
Oh my
I know at
gosh.
15. So and that's just my
Yes.
son showing him. So I feel as a parent, you just model and do your best and don't let it in the house. I think that's probably for everybody, including me. Don't let it in, because once it's in, you're going to eat it. So if someone gives me chocolate, I have to either run down and throw it in the green waste bin or eat it all fast, because I don't know about you, but if
Interesting.
there's chocolate in the house, I will eat the whole block. I can't stop. I can't just have one. And it calls to me in the cupboard. And so I just don't let it in. And if someone gives me chocolate, I usually throw it out, because even if I save it to give to someone else, I know it's there and I'll eat it. And so I feel never go shopping when you're hungry. Always go when you're strong and full, and fill up that trolley with real food, and don't keep it in your cupboards, because you're going to be eating it. And that is when it's hard for people who perhaps partner isn't on board with it, and they're buying the soft drink or the Coke and the chocolates. It's hard because it's in the house and it's difficult. So I feel for people whose families aren't supporting them. It's like being an alcoholic and there's alcohol, or a heroin addict and there's heroin in the cupboard. It's difficult. It's better, don't let it in. What is in your trolley is really important.
They're the clients that I have that struggle the most. The ones that either their partner or teenage children are bringing other food in and eating it in front of them, and it's they just have no safe zone. That they're constantly under temptation and bringing in food that they know that they find irresistible. So that really is a huge challenge. Where online social communities and getting good people around you who are doing the same thing can be really helpful in that situation, to just kind of keep buoying you up. That they do struggle. You mentioned your husband was a healthy eater and very interested in health, and that he's a doctor as well. I listened to his talk at Low Carb Sydney, I think it was,
Yes.
one of the low carb Australian ones, and it was fantastic. His talk, it was also quite shocking. The images that he shared, they're really shocking, because he's a surgeon and can you explain his 5-minute consult, because you have a bit of a dream team up there in Port Macquarie by the sounds of it. They're lucky.
He was
probably one of the
about that talk, because
so good.
It was quite confronting. So he's a urologist, and so I started doing this way of eating and coming home and being amazed, and we all started eating this way. And so he said, can you give me your handout? Because for patients who need surgery around their prostate and kidneys, they're tapped deep in the abdomen, and the surgeon has to get through a lot of fat to get there, and it makes the operation much harder for them, the operation much longer, and then there are more complications. So he, for years, has been saying to patients, can you lose weight for your operation? But nobody ever could. And so then he started giving them my low-carb handout and telling them about low-carb in 5 minutes. And they would all lose so much weight that all the other doctors in the operating theatre, the anaesthetists, would be saying, what have you done? How have you got you people to lose weight? And for him, it was amazing, because he said the fat that sticks around the kidney, it's called toxic fat. So most fat you can sort of get in a plane and lift it around the kidney, but this sort of sticks. But when he gets them on this diet, it seems to get rid of this toxic fat, so it's easier to operate. It makes a huge difference. And so he was stunned at how amazing it was. And so in this talk at Low Carb Down Under, he gave his sort of 5-minute spiel that he gives to patients about what he tells them. It talks about insulin and don't eat the sugars and starches. So it's very simple and black and white. What was shocking, and I think he said to me the other day, I sometimes worry I shouldn't have put that picture up, was of the person that they're preparing for theatre. But he's saying it's terrifying for the medical team. If someone's really overweight, it's actually really scary for them to get in there and do this operation. So that's why he put it in there. But he hoped he didn't upset people, because it was confronting.
It was very confronting. And the toxic fat, he showed photos or images of that as well. I mean, they really, out of all of the talks, that those images and that talk, it's only a very short talk, about 10 minutes. It was, quite, it stays with you. It's quite confronting.
But I worry, there's just something going on. I don't know why everyone's overweight. I don't know whether, sometimes I do think maybe there's plastics or something that's affecting the fat cells and making it easier for people to put on weight, and that low carb does something that makes it work better. But, I mean, it's insulin and the insulin receptor. There's something happening. But for health professionals and for hospitals, I don't know what they're going to do if it just keeps going, because the beds aren't big enough. How do you intubate? My husband's had to say to people, we can't do your operation. It's too dangerous because they're so overweight. The whole health system cannot keep going. It just can't. The tablets and little injections and cutting people's stomachs out, and we do need the whole food system to change. It's just overwhelming. I just don't know, because people are living in this world. How are they meant to, as an individual, beat this when everywhere they go, like you say, from school, at the petrol station, at the checkout, it's just coming at you everywhere. You're just going to get sicker and sicker. And it's scary. I feel like it's a bit scary.
And it's a storm as well, because there's the food environment, which is just enough as it is. But then the medicines, the medications that people are on are making them overweight as well. Yes. And then there's emotional eating because we're stressed, the pressure. So, it's an enormous problem, which is why I feel like it's really important for me to talk to people like you, Penny, who are actually, you do have a number of patients now on your, in recent years that you've helped to completely reverse this. And by joining forces and putting information out there, and hopefully touching those individual lives. And I've heard you say that when you consult with one person, you do two for the price of one, because you find out a little bit about the family and perhaps kind of the person's partner or their children might benefit. So, I mean, that's one way, I suppose, we can.
My husband says that as well, and you have to go to the partner. Are you a diabetic? What tablets are you on? Because if they're both going to do it, you're going to have to cut back everyone's medication.
Yes. Yes, you've got to be careful about the medication, because that can cause problems with diabetes and heart medication particularly, and I think some psychiatric medications, because you're getting better, you can have a hypo or you have a problem. So we need to be careful that people are getting regular check-ins when they go low carb.
Yes, yeah. I mean, mostly it's fine. I mean, with the diabetes medications, the insulin and sulfonylureas are the two you just don't want to miss, because your sugars will go too low. But for metformin, which most people are on, there's no big deal. And then there's those new SGLT2 inhibitors, which, unless you're type 1 or very low on insulin yourself, like burnt out type 2, they're not so horrific, but you probably should talk to your doctor about it. But the insulin and the sulfonylurea, you don't want to just go boom, low carb by yourself. Keep injecting the same amount of insulin and taking that sulfonylurea tablet, because your blood sugar will go very low. And, in fact, I had a patient taking glycoside, which is a sulfonylurea, and I told her to stop it, which she did. But the next day, because it's got this long half-life, she collapsed in the pharmacy, and I had to call the ambulance because she had a hypo from the tablet, which we had stopped the way you meant to, but it had gone into the next day. So that's unusual. It's never happened before, but it's just to make the point. Just get rid of those nasty lowering blood glucose level tablets. And that is the problem, is a lot of doctors don't know this. So if you go to your GP and ask, they're probably not going to have a clue. Like,
Yeah, deprescribing is not a big area of confidence for a lot of physicians. You know, pop them on meds, keep them on meds, add more meds, but not deprescribing is lacking. People lack the skills and confidence around that, which is kind of crackers.
I know. I've just written there's a new diabetes handbook coming out for general practitioners, and I've seen a draft version, and I've just written to them and said, please do a chapter on deprescribing. Because they sort of casually drop it, hidden in, very low energy diets. They plonk it very small, and no one's going to see it. It needs to be a big deprescribing, how to do it, low carb for GPs.
And we've got information on that as well that's come from the UK. I don't know if there was also American protocols, but from the UK, Dr. Campbell Murdoch, he was championing that, perhaps David Unwin also. But we've got really good information on how to deprescribe this medication and follow quite a tight protocol. So, yeah, good. I hope that gets some attention there. And that's some of the work that you're doing behind the scenes, as well as running, your clinic and looking after people, getting people off medication. You and your husband as a dream team, helping people. He was helping patients lose 1 kilo a week and even more before surgery and maintain it. But you're also in the background writing documents, trying to improve the way diabetes, the information and the guidelines. So is there anything that you're working on in particular in that area that you wanted to mention?
Well, you're part of the Australian Metabolic Health Society, Claire, and we've just written it like a rebuttal and pulled research together and sent it to the RACGP, who are the College of General Practitioners, who are the expert people who are writing this new guideline, which really doesn't look like low carb is going to get much of a mention there, just a token, be careful type mention. And so we've written a document really trying to push back against that, so people get that offered to them. It just should be offered, and GPs need to know about it, but unfortunately they're not being told. No one's telling them. So you can't judge your doctor for not knowing, because the people they rely on to keep them up to date are pretending that low carb has no science behind it, when it, of course, has heaps of science behind it. So we've just written that document, and, there's a course for dietitians that the Society's put together, and running a course for GPs. So we're trying to push back. We've had interviews with universities to try and get metabolic health and low carb, with James Mukey arranging those. But there's just this strange, I don't know what it is, groupthink on the other side. There is such a thing as groupthink, and I think these experts all get together and they live in this bubble of the way you treat obesity, the latest obesity algorithm for GPs. This is the takeaway. It's so easy. So easy. When lifestyle doesn't work, whatever that is, limiting calories. Okay, so when you're limiting calorie, lifestyle doesn't work. Very low energy drinks, so OptiFast.
Yeah.
2, drugs, so inject your Ozempic, and then bariatric surgery. So it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. I always think, oh gosh, that'd be so easy, wouldn't it? Just, okay, here's your OptiFast. Oh, that didn't work. Here's your Ozempic. Oh, that didn't work. I'll send you to the surgeon to cut out your stomach. But that's pretty much, that's sort of the obesity algorithm. And the big bit is that nutrition bit. It just shouldn't be calories. They're still talking about calories, and I never talk about calories. Never, ever, ever do I talk calories. I just say eat till you're hungry. Just eat in a way that harnesses your natural hormones that makes you feel full. So eat the way nature intended and the system works. And that's fat and protein and limiting carbohydrates. And then your natural Ozempic works. And you're naturally full. And you don't need to count calories because your body's working the way it's meant to, because you feel full and so you don't eat. But they're still focused on calories. It seems so old-fashioned, doesn't it, Claire? Do you think it seems old-fashioned? But they're still mentioning calories. So there's that. But, I mean, I'm hoping they'll change slowly one day.
I think it sounds old-fashioned, really, but more like you're saying and you're hinting at. It's really dodgy. Like, we have so much evidence on low carb. I mean, there was the food fix report that came out of WA. I think that landed when I first arrived around 2018, 2019 in Australia, and that was rebutted by health bodies and dietitian organisations. So the low carb element was not moved forward. Those recommendations that were really well researched by teams who travelled to the UK, looked in depth at what they were doing, I was practicing in the NHS in medical centres were asking me to go in as a nutritionist and talk to their patients and run groups. And over here, I moved here and I went to diabetes organisation conferences and groups, and I saw them stand up and say it's a progressive condition that can't be reversed. It's like, well, England and America have got so much evidence coming out of it, and South Africa. You can't ignore the latest evidence, but that's what's happening. And then 4 or 5 years later, that's still what's happening. But I think we are slowly making an impact, making a change. I just don't think it should be down to pioneers and zealots like you and I and the patients as well, the groundswell of not just patients, but individuals who've done this for themselves. I mean, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who've improved their health. And, but our bodies are just very suspiciously dragging their heels over offering. And it's not for everyone. It's my jacket potato guy. I want my jacket potato. So thank you for the information, but it's not for me. Well, fine. But I just want you to have the information and then make your own choice. So yeah, old-fashioned bits and suspicious, but you've given I think you give a lot of nuggets, even if you don't realise you're doing
nuggets.
it.
Claire did warn me she was going to ask me that, and I didn't think of it. They just come out. I must write a nugget.
No, they do.
A nugget list.
You're a natural nuggeter. That's what you are.
I wanted to say something hopeful, because I think Diabetes Australia is secretly going low carb because they've just partnered with a meal plan company that does home delivery of meals, and they're low carbish. Like, I looked at the meals and they're less than 20 grams of carbs per meal, which we think is probably high, but is actually pretty
How
low.
much? 100 did you say 120?
20 per meal.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's a low carb. It is low carb, and
it is.
And Defeat Diabetes has partnered with them. So I was really interested when I got this email. We've just partnered with these, and I looked at the meals and went, wow, they're looking nice. Not the usual, when you normally go on their recipe sites and it's all date loaf with whole grain,
Yes,
flour.
and get your whole grains in. And it's like, whoa.
Probably not good for blood glucose.
Jack the insulin up.
So that's hopeful. So it's so exciting, though. Do you think it's exciting? I feel like we're watching history unfold. We're like, we're going to look back and go, oh,
yeah. I think it's exciting, and what they've done there is they've brought in Grant Brinksworth, and he has got experience, and he's got some new role of director of something, so he has experience and expertise in low carbohydrates. So I think behind the scenes they're championing it, and what I've suspected for quite a long time is that behind the scenes these organisations are saying, no, don't do it, dangerous, you'll never be able to do that, or maintain it, there's no evidence, while secretly preparing to deliver it. That's, and maybe potentially profit from it. So,
oh, really?
Well, that's just a horribly suspicious thing that I think. I mean, it's like when big organisations and states have been saying in America no to cannabis for medical reasons, but also researching it, preparing it, getting their branding ready, and how they're going to market it and what format and what.
So they're going to own it. They're going to run it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But I mean, whatever is good for the population, the fact that it's taking so long is the problem. But I do think organisations like Dietitians Australia have now made this landmark agreement with Defeat diabetes, and they're a low-carb organisation that's been privately started by zealots like Dr. Peter Bruckner, who's reversed his own health conditions using low-carb diet. So there's positive, very, very big positive moves. So I think things are unfolding that's going to be very beneficial. Just don't think it should have taken this long and this much pushback. And like you're saying, your guy with the kidneys at the beginning, I think that's what's happening in the meantime while we wait, while they get the kind of ducks in a row. But just there's a lot that we've unpacked, and I just wanted to know, in terms of, just to close, how so when somebody is coming to you, they've got their difficult situation around them, they've got like cake set with the workplace. Lots of teachers have this, and lots of actual people who work in hospitals have so much of a poor food culture. So what are the first steps you would like people, what's the low-hanging fruit that they could take action on today and for the next few weeks to get them started?
Before I say that, one of my things, I always say the tea room is the most dangerous place in Australia. It is, isn't it, that tea room? Particularly for teachers. I've got a few patients as teachers and also nurses. And they'll go into like, if you love your nurse, don't give them a box of chocolates. And so there's teachers' tea rooms are just so dangerous. And a lot of patients don't go into the tea room. That's how they dodge it. They don't go in there. Okay, nuggets. Just start with breakfast. You don't have to do low carb everywhere, and it doesn't have to be keto. Don't get an app. Don't count. Just make it easy for yourself. Get eggs. If you like eggs, you're a winner. And just start your day with a good protein, and then you're going to feel full, and that's going to just lead in. So even if you just get breakfast sorted and then move on to lunch, and then with your dinner just start pulling it back. And maybe move to diet jelly. If you're someone who likes dessert, have your diet jelly, or start moving to those awful artificial sweeteners. But that's better. But just start with breakfast. Don't make it keto apps rules. It has to be easy, livable, real food. And I think if you just think real food in your head all the time, you'll be so much better off. Things like rice crackers, salada biscuits, breakfast cereal, including Wheat Bix, are not health foods. They're processed foods. They're not going to make you feel good. So eggs for breakfast. And as Karen Dwyer gave a talk, and she's a kidney professor, so, she uses low carb. Kidneys like low carb. And she said the first question she'll always say anxiously is, do you like eggs? And you cross your fingers, because sometimes people don't like eggs. You go, oh, okay.
Yes. I have a client who does not like eggs at the moment, and I love it when they do, and they're willing to make them and eat them in the morning. And for kids, it's amazing. It's affordable. They're accessible. They're pretty quick, just a change of routine. Yes, and it's like taking away the red flag. We were told for years, don't eat eggs, and they're going to raise your cholesterol. They're bad for you.
Even the Heart Foundation likes eggs now. Even the Heart. I know. So when people go, oh, this is different to everything I've been told, I say, well, go back in time. They used to say don't eat nuts. We used to eat the white bit of the egg, didn't we? Not the yellow bit. Now we're allowed to eat the eggs. Do you think maybe they don't know what they're talking about? And look, one thing I say to people about eggs in the morning, because people often go, I don't have time. This is how it's the same time as a bowl of muesli. Is you just plonk your fry pan on the stove, put your lump of butter in, crack your eggs in, a bit of salt, stir it around. You don't need bowls or anything. You stir it around in your fry pan, plonk it on your plate, or even eat it out of your fry pan. That's how fast it is, and then you just shove it in the sink, and you can wash it when you get home. It doesn't have to be a big omelette. It doesn't involve hours. It's just like a quick egg and out the door. And then you're ready to go for the day.
Yeah. And that's, I've got a client who makes hers in the microwave. It's not my bag, but that's, she's really happy. She says the flavour's lovely. And then another lady who's got 2 children, she makes like an omelette or a frittata, and then she makes it big enough to last for 2 days. She makes it the night before, puts it in slices, puts it in the fridge, and then warms that in the morning. So there's different ways of doing it if you really feel like you haven't got 2 minutes to scramble eggs. Often it's just getting organised and changing routine. But yeah, I like that you want people to start with breakfast. I often do that as well, because it sets you up and get that sustainable change, bed that in, and then move to the next part, which is what you're suggesting. So thank you. Thank you for your time. Yeah, thanks. And for all the work you're doing behind the scenes with your clients and pushing this forward and just resonating joy from eating this way. I think that's part of it. It's not, necessarily a restrictive diet. It's actually really, really fun to eat this way. It's really tasty, healthy, and you just feel great on it. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for asking me, Claire.
Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please make sure to subscribe. This really helps us to be able to create more content.